Hi guys, it's Tamara coming back at you with another video. Welcome back to my channel. We're going to talk a little bit today about disruptive behavioral disorders. And if I do a recap over the past maybe 2 to 3 weeks in the month of May, I would say we've been talking primarily about trauma. So now we're going to start focusing a little bit on behavioral therapy and focusing on and targeting specific behaviors that kids are struggling with. I think this is an important topic. So the benefits for you today is going to be that you're going to learn how to deal with disruptive behavioral disorders that are occurring within the school system. And I'm going to point out some typical and some common behaviors of kids who are struggling in school. And then I'm also going to point out some ways that parents can address the school or communicate with the school in regards to the disruptive behavior. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to start by talking about 5 things that I think most kids struggle with. Okay, so let's start with aggression. So what is aggression? If we define aggression, we're talking about behavior that is either verbal or nonverbal. And aggressive behavior is characterized by harming self or others. So you might characterize aggressive behaviors as kicking, screaming, biting, scratching, yelling, cursing, threats, right? I'm going to kill you. I'm going to hurt you. You're going to be sorry. Those kind of things. Those are all aggressive statements. Most kids who are under the age of 10 don't show these behaviors. A lot of times they're too intimidated by adults, or they have a certain level of respect that's been taught to them from home and from family members. So they won't push the script, they won't push the boundary line, or push adults to have to give them consequences for aggressive behavior. So most kids shy away from aggressive behavior while other kids plunge deeper and deeper into it. Now, we have a small segment of kids, or a small sector of kids, who are struggling. And these are the kids who are emotionally disturbed. Now, what I consider emotionally disturbed is a child who has a hard time regulating his or her own emotions despite consequences, rules, repeated conversations about behavior. And these are also kids who may be struggling with mental health conditions like ADHD or oppositional defiant disorder or conduct disorder, right? So these kind of kids who are emotionally imbalanced or unstable or emotionally disturbed are typically falling under the criteria of aggression. Okay, the next one is passive aggressive behavior. Now, when we're talking about children, we don't see a lot of passive aggressive behavior, but what I have noticed in my practice are kids who struggle with passive aggressive behaviors such as shutting down, right? Shutting down and getting angry later. That's a typical one. Refusing to talk, directing the conversation elsewhere. Walking around the house frowning or angry and refusing to talk about it, calling people names under their breath, or calling parents names under their breath and refusing to repeat it or talk about it, right? Those kind of kids are passive aggressive. They show aggressive behaviors, but they're not direct about it. And that's the hard part. Because they're not direct. And so it's going to take adults a lot of time to pull the covers off and figure out what's going on here. All right. The next set of behaviors would be what I call anticipatory, if I can get it out, anticipatory anxiety. And that's basically defined as anxiety that is present when a child anticipates something happening. For most kids, anticipatory anxiety is in regards to school. They anticipate that school is going to be awful, that it's going to be hard, it's going to be boring, it's going to be, rule bound, and they just can't adjust or don't find it beneficial to fall in line with other kids or fall in line with the rules of the school. So that anticipatory anxiety is really huge for most kids. They start getting shaky, their heart rate goes up, they start crying, they start saying their stomach hurts, they start saying they have a headache, all because school is difficult for them, and the anticipation of school makes it 10 times worse. All right, guys, so the next two would be social and school anxiety. So I'm going to lump those two together, social and school anxiety. These are these poor kids who experience school and social anxiety struggle a lot, okay? And they struggle because school is anxiety provoking, and so are social interactions. They can't mend, they can't mold, it's too hard for them. They have a different way that they perceive the world, perceive school, perceive other kids. And so it's really difficult for them to just grasp the concept of get through a few hours and you get to come home. So these kind of kids are usually sitting in the nurse's office crying, begging to go home, saying that their stomach is sick, saying that they're overwhelmed. So there's often a lot of avoidance behaviors that occur with kids who are experiencing social and school anxiety. Okay, and the final one is masked depression. This is my own concept, masked depression. I'm going to put it here since I can't pronounce it. But basically, masked depression is the concept that a child is depressed and yet they're masking it by laughing and going along and seeming happy most of the time. And I think there are two reasons why. One is because most kids can't hold in their mind their sadness. So what do? They adjust to the environment and to the moment, and they push through it. And it almost makes it look like they're fine, right? It almost makes it look like they're doing okay because they're pushing through the moment without any kind of obstacles. They seem happy, they seem content. Hey, life is great for them, right? Not really, because these kids are what's the word I'm looking for? They're very good at kind of covering up what they really feel in the moment. And it might be unintentional or it could be intentional. There are some really smart 6-year-olds who know how to survive and they know how to get through the moment by laughing and going along and being content. Or maybe for that moment, they really are happy and content, but it doesn't mean that they're not depressed, okay? The other reason is, most of us in society have survival skills, and most kids recognize that if they don't go along, there's gonna be consequences, and so they learn how to adjust, they learn how to go along, but it doesn't mean that they're not depressed, okay? So let's go ahead and jump right into some of the tips that I have, and I actually wrote them down because I can't hold all of this in my mind, but let's go ahead and talk a little bit about some of the things that I think parents should do when they are communicating with a school, okay? I think there's going to be a lot of wisdom that's going to be needed when communicating with a school. You want to keep in mind that any kind of communication that you have with a school is going to be recorded, right? All the emails you send, all the phone calls you make, all of those things are reported. They're also put into your child's file. Don't think that you're just having a conversation with a teacher or a principal and that's that, because they're going to keep record of what's going on. So I have a few tips on my experience over the past 11 years working with kids and in schools. I have a couple tips that I think you should have as a parent if you are a parent. If not, I encourage you to share this video with somebody who may need it. All right, so the first thing that I encourage you to do is constantly keep this in the forefront of your mind. Balance, okay? I want you to be balanced. You want to be balanced, right? When you're talking to the school about your child, the last thing you want to do is sound like you're hopping from one idea to the next, to the next, to the next, right? You want to have a clear and narrow view of what's happening to your child. The last thing that you want to do is give any impression to a school that you have absolutely no idea what's happening to your kid. You want to show that, yes, I'm aware of the behaviors. Yes, I see them happening, and how do I fix it? The other thing is, yes, I'm open to support, and yes, I know exactly what's happening to my kid. Now, even if you don't feel that you do, you still want to keep a balanced perspective. You don't want to hop all over the place, because then that shows you're not sure, or you're guessing, or you're trying to show your kid favor, and you don't want that. So stay balanced. Anytime you communicate with the school, stay balanced, okay? The next one is language. You want to watch your language 100%, okay? Any language that you use can and will be used against you. You don't want to use things like, manipulator, or he's calculating or she's calculating, or you don't want to use things like, he or she's aggressive, or, he smacked his brother at home in the face. You don't want to hide information, but you want to be careful how you share information and what you say. You don't want to say anything that's going to mask your kid's real issue, but you also don't want to say anything that's going to exaggerate and change the perspective of someone on your child, okay? So you definitely want to be careful about language. What is it that you're trying to get across? What are you saying in this email or this communication? And how is the other person going to perceive this? Always proofread your emails. Have somebody else proofread them. Do not respond in the moment if you're agitated or frustrated or upset. Take some time to ponder before you say anything to a school, okay? Thank them. That's the next one. I think it's okay to say to a teacher or a principal or a staff member at the school, thank you so much for dealing with my son or my daughter. I know they're going through a lot, and I really appreciate your support on this. I think thanking them is a great way to say, you know, let's be a team. Let's work on this together. So you definitely want to thank them, okay? Offer to help. And what I mean by that is offer to stay behind some days. Let's say you drop your kid off at school and you know mornings are tough. Offer to stay just to kind of observe from the background or just to kind of be around in case the kid has to go back home because they're struggling with anxiety or they're crying or they're acting out. So let them know I'm willing to do as much as I can. You never want to sound like it's going to be an inconvenience to you to do anything because quite frankly, it's your kid. It's not their child or their responsibility. So you always want to show them that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this work. Okay. The next one is reframe things appropriately. And what I mean by reframe is take a narrow perspective of your child and reframe it and expand it. Okay. A narrow perspective of your child, turn it and expand it. Okay. You want to expand it in such a way that you help the school see that there are many reasons why your kid could be experiencing what they're experiencing. You don't want to narrow their perspective because the moment you narrow their perspective or you cause them to see something one way, it's going to be really hard for them to adjust their perspective. So you want to reframe things in a positive way, reframe it in a balanced way. So an example of this might be, instead of saying that your son is strong-willed and is oppositional, you could say something like, you know, my daughter struggles a lot with rules, and I've seen that she's very independent, very smart for her age, very advanced. And so because of that, it makes it hard for her to adjust in the school. That's a nice way and a balanced way of saying, yes, I know my kid is difficult, but let me help you understand why. So you want to reframe things appropriately. Don't over-exaggerate, don't underestimate. You just want to be balanced and positive and reframe. All right. The next one is stay organized with the school, okay? You want to keep every single email and communication. You want to keep dates, you want to keep names, you want to keep times of everybody that you've communicated about your child. You don't want to just throw it off as, it's just an email, delete. No, you don't want to say, it was just a phone call. I don't even know who the heck I just talked to. You want to keep names, you want to keep dates and times, how long you were on the phone with the teacher or the principal, what you guys talked about, and then you want to keep emails. Save it in your email. Like just create a folder for your son or your daughter and just put all the emails in there. You never know when you're going to need that information, and I can bet you that the school is keeping track of you, so you want to keep track of them as well. The next one is, remember, I don't even see. Okay, I put on here remember dates. So we talked about that a little bit. The next thing that you want to do is only have 2 contacts for the school. One of the things I wrote down on my list here was if you have a child who is struggling in the school system and one parent or the other parent can't show up every time, only have one other person as the contact, right? You don't want to have 5 or 6 people on the contact list. You want to have at least 2 or 3. Keep it minimal. It kind of keeps things organized. It kind of keeps information funneling through the right channels, because if you have too many people involved, there have been situations where, parents have gotten confused, schools have gotten confused. So, if you just have 1 or 2 contacts, that's the best way to do it, just to keep things organized. The next thing would be involve the therapist. So if your child has a therapist, involve the therapist. You want to tell them what's going on. You want to see if the therapist will coordinate care with the school. Will the school coordinate care with the therapist? therapist. You also have the right to ask, you know, could you visit my son or daughter in the school? Is that something that you do? So you want to ask those kind of questions as well. Kind of keep a clear line of communication between the school and the therapist. It can be very helpful in understanding what's going on with your child, okay? The next one is minimize as many therapeutic people as you can. So let's say your child has various services: occupational therapy, physical therapy, a mental health therapist, you know, a sensory integration therapist. So your child sees all these therapists through the week, but who do you go to, right? Who do you have sign the Family Medical Leave Act form? Who do you have sign the release of information, right? So what I suggest is that you cling to the person that your child most likely has bonded with and stick with that person for most of the information. That doesn't mean push out everybody else. It just means for the main information, stick with that child's provider, the provider that your child has bonded with, okay? Because what you want to do is you want to foster that bond if it's working. And the other side of that is, you know, you won't have to like share information with everybody on the team, if that makes sense. A lot of times therapists have a hard time pulling in other people on the team, and it could just cause confusion. So try to narrow things down as much as you can, all right? And then last but not least, clarify your child's needs. You want to make sure that the school understands exactly what's going on, okay? You want to clarify. Be balanced. All right, guys, thanks so much for being with me today. I'm so glad you guys send me emails and tweets and text messages that prompts me to have these kind of videos created. I'm really glad about that. I think this is going to be a helpful video, I hope, at least, to a lot of parents, and I'm glad you guys sent me messages to actually do a video on this topic. So I encourage you guys to give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful. When you do that, you are pushing the video to the top of the search results, and that means that you are giving other people who need videos like this access. When you don't hit the like button, and that means the video kind of stays low in the stats on YouTube, and then other people won't find it, or they'll find it, but it'll be down in the search results, right? So I encourage you to hit the thumbs up button. I also encourage you to subscribe. I think it's going to be on this side here. You want to go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you want to keep up with videos that I post Monday and Friday of every week. If you guys have topics you'd like me to discuss, feel free to contact me at my website, anchoredinKnowledge.com. I'm going to put all my contact information at the end of the video, and I'm always, you know, welcoming you guys to send me messages. So contact me at my Twitter, at my website, at my blog, and let me know what you're thinking. All right, guys, thanks so much, and I'll see you guys really soon. Bye-bye.